Hi, teacher Cynthia here. Good to have you in class. We're going to go over the parts of a sewing machine. I'll include a printout for you as well, but I'd like you to watch this whole video to just kind of go over the different parts. And this will help us communicate a little bit better if you have any questions. All different sewing machines are different. They have a very similar makeup, but they can have their parts move just a little bit over. So maybe you might need to send me a screen picture of your machine so I can help you a little bit better. But right up here, go ahead and just say it out loud so you can practice your vocabulary. This right here is the bobbin winder. Can you say bobbin winder for me? Yeah, and this is the area we're going to take our little bobbin, which is like a mini spool of thread, and we're going to place it there to reload it with some thread. Because once it runs out, we need to reload it. That's the bottom stitch. So the needle comes down and picks up the bottom thread, which would be inside that bobbin. And we need to make sure that our tension is correct. Otherwise, if it doesn't get wound really nicely, it can cause our machine to jam, cause our stitches to kind of bunch up. Right here is the spool pin. Sometimes they're behind the machine, sometimes they're on top, just depends on the make and model of your machine. So right here, you'll see this little disc. So if you have your sewing machine, go ahead and look at it. If you have the top one, you just slide the disc on top, and that helps the thread to maintain so it doesn't hop around as it's being pulled. This is going to be the area where we put the spool of thread. And a spool of thread is just that thing that we have. So there's a spool of thread that you slide in and then you close it with that disc plate. So it's really important to make sure that you have that on. So right here is the take up lever. So please say take up lever. Yeah, and that's what's gonna take the thread up and down. It pulls the thread, and our tension control right here. On my machine, it's been over here. I have several machines, but it's usually over here in this where it says stitch selector. So this one, it is right here is the tension control. You have to make sure that your thread's not too tight. Sometimes that'll break your thread a lot. And you don't want it to be too loose. Then your stitches are going to be loose and sloppy and cause knotting. Right here is your thread cutter. It's just like a little piece of metal. And that makes it easy. That way, instead of clipping your threads, you can pull the thread up after you're done sewing and kind of slice it over that. Right here is the needle, where the needle would go. And usually there's like a hole with a screw. And so you can screw to loosen it so it opens up and you can put the needle in, and then you got to take that screw and close it back down so that needle is held in nicely. Right here, go ahead and say throat plate. And that's just, you'll see like a little plate with a clear disc that you can see the bobbin through. Underneath is that little refillable bobbin that'll have the extra thread. So this is the throat plate. You have your slide plate, and this is called bobbin housing. And that's where you just kind of store your extra bobbins. It's good to have a seam ripper. And I'll show you what all these other things are that we'll put inside our bobbin housing. It's just a little storage compartment. And as you saw in the other video, you're able to remove that most of the time. And that's really good if you need to turn as you're sewing to do a hem. So you can slide sleeves over that, because sometimes this is too wide. So part of it will remove, and then you just put it back in place when you're done. And also say feed dogs. Yeah, and if you look at your machine, there'll be like metal pieces that kind of look bumpy. And those are the feed dogs. So those, they're like stripes, but those will kind of feed the fabric through as you're sewing. So you'll pull slightly, but it also, those things will go up and down, grabbing onto the fabric, bringing it closer to you. Right here, please say foot lever. Yeah, your foot lever is, you're going to want to lift the foot. And the foot is this metal piece right here. And it kind of looks like a H. So that metal H with like curves like a sled curve. And that's the foot right there. So when you're loading your needle, you're going to need to use that lever in the back. You'll feel that foot lever. So bring that up and it'll raise the foot. So that way you can thread your needle, you can get your fabric underneath. Once your fabric is done and loaded into the machine, ready to be sewn, you're going to lower the foot lever. So go ahead and try that on your machine. See how it goes up and down? So now the foot is nice and stationary on it. Sometimes these can pop off. The foot can pop off sometimes. You just got to snap it back into place. Usually it doesn't happen, but it can. And you didn't break your machine. You just got to stick it back on. So you don't have to worry about that. Please say reverse. Yeah, and sometimes we want to back stitch. So we're going to stitch forward and then we got to back stitch and then stitch forward again. And it kind of seals that area so the threads don't come out. It's like almost like tying a knot. So you should locate your reverse lever or button. Usually it's up in here and it should be labeled on your machine to make it a little bit easier too. So definitely study the different parts of the sewing machine. Also say hand wheel. And this is the hand wheel. So please locate it. It's like a little circle disc. And that is if you need to kind of slowly bring the needle down, if you want to line it up or you need to lift it. So that's your hand wheel. And you should have on the side of your machine plug. And that plug is connected to a foot pedal. So please say foot pedal. And those are kind of fun. It's kind of like you're driving. So be really careful. Don't push really heavy on it. You're going to want to use this portion of your foot. You don't want to put your whole foot on it. Just kind of gently do it up and down. So practice with the speed. Get used to sewing a little bit slower. Be very careful. I have sewn through my finger before because I got my hand too close and the needle like got stuck. So just be careful. Make sure you have a grown-up with you just to make sure that you're doing it right. Just before you start sewing, I'd like you to practice with the speed. So you're comfortable with the speed because at first it might go forward a little bit faster than you expected. So just take your time getting used to just a comfortable thing. And then we'll break into sewing just straight lines on paper, curved lines, get used to the feel of it. And we got some great projects that we're going to be doing. So just keep studying your machine, get used to it, try to wind the bobbin. And what you're going to do is for the bobbin to wind it, you should put, there should be a little bump right there. And you're going to put the spool, I'm sorry, what you're going to do is right here on the spool pin, you're going to wind through your little disc up here. It's kind of like a curly Q, and you wind it through. And depending on your machine, usually you go around and then you go into the bobbin. So you load the thread through the top hole of that bobbin and you pull it out, and then you put the bobbin on the bobbin winder. And then you're going to need to slide that over and hold on to that thread for a little while and slowly put your foot on the foot pedal, and it'll start winding that bobbin for you. And once it's full, you just clip that thread, leave a little bit off, not too much. Then you're going to want to pull the thread that was, you clip the top by the hole, and then the string that got loaded, give yourself some space. You can pull it out, and then we're going to learn how to load the machine. So now loading the bobbin, it depends on your machine exactly how you should do it. So some of them are little casings and some of them are flat discs. If you have a flat disc, you remove this clear piece, you just kind of slide it out, and then you take that bobbin and you slide it in. And you take the thread from the right and you pull it through a little metal slit. So once you do that, you pull it out a little bit, you grab the thread, you bring with your hand wheel, you can bring it down. And once the thread, you can see it kind of gets a loop. So you can take some scissors or something to kind of bring that out, pull it away. And once you do that, you can close up the plastic plate and then bring your, load your fabric, and then you can start sewing. So go over the parts of the sewing machine. We'll go over loading the machine with the thread a little more in detail. But right now, just definitely get used to your machine. Look at this sheet and tell me what is one thing you didn't realize was on a sewing machine. All right, comment below, and I look forward to working with you. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. See you soon.